Hey everybody, and welcome to Kerbal Space Program, and welcome to the Kerbal Space Station Series 1, my first attempt at a space station in the Kerbal Space Program game. Now, as you can see, it's not exactly great. It's got a massive fuel tank and a very small body, but the whole point of this was to make me good at docking, and it did that, but we have to replace it. So, what are we going to replace it with? Well, that's today's video. Okay, so here we are. We're going to build the whole thing in front of you. It's running at 6 times speed at the moment. Basically, it's a really big project, and you're not going to see the whole thing because there's an awful lot of strutting that goes into this, because I'm doing it in entirely a single launch. I'm doing everything in one launch. I was going to do it in multiple stages with multiple different rockets and launch vehicles and stuff, but it was just getting massive, and I really wanted to do this in a video that you guys could see. So, what we're doing first is the central core. This is going to be the actual center of the whole station. It's got 2 habitation pods, well, hitchhiker pods. They hold 4 Kerbals each. I want to say 4. Yeah, they do hold 4. And they've got the cupola at the top for the command and control. When I first started kind of expanding, I was going to just do it on like struts out from the tank and put them up, but I realized I needed something that was a bit more stable, because I'm going to be using all 4 docking ports of that central unit there. So we've got three science labs that are going up. 1 in the central core and then 2 sitting off on the side. We've also got a docking arm that's being built there, and also a fuel tank, because I want to use this as something that can fuel something going a bit further out into the solar system, if need be. Also, we could send up maybe a unit that has an engine on it, possibly. So like a probe or something like that. I'm not entirely sure, but this entire build could be modified to make it into an interplanetary station, which would be kind of awesome. You'll notice on the top of the actual structure you've got 2 docking ports. They're going to be for the lifeboats, because we're going to be sending up all of our Kerbals at the same time. Everyone that's going to be on this station, with the exception of 1 pilot, is going up with the launch. I'm really doing this all in one launch if I can. There's a couple of things I had to change. One, I didn't put probe cores. As you can see, I'm putting probe cores on all the extra bits, simply because we're going to have to do an awful lot of docking when we get up there. And then we've got the communication struts, which are also for the solar arrays and the radiators, and they all have to be moved. Now, you'll notice at one point I'll suddenly stop, and that's because what comes next is the launch vehicle and the strutting, because this is not getting covered in a shroud or anything like that. It's too big. So we have to strut the living daylights out of this thing. We really do. There is struts upon struts upon struts just to hold it all together for the launch. We also have to launch in a slightly different way, as you can see. Now, we do have on this particular launch vehicle 5 mammoth engines on each of the boosters and the main propulsion section. So there's 4 boosters. You can see where this is going. We've got 25 mammoth engines just to get this into orbit. Now the TWR, or the thruster weight on the first stage, is around 2.2. And you're probably thinking, well, Rival, you only need between, 1.3, 1.4 to get something into orbit. Not on this. The weight of everything put together is immense. I'll try and remember to put the actual weights of all the different components into the description so you can see just how much we've got there. So that's the first stage off. Now we drop down to about 1.86 thrust to weight ratio. It's still an awful lot. And we're still going straight up, because the aerodynamic properties of this station are pretty much non-existent. And if you try and tilt it to a 45-degree when you're launching, although it is possible, normally it breaks halfway down the actual main body of the rocket and it just falls apart. So I may have done a couple of launches on testing. So basically we're getting it up to around 23,000 meters, and then we're starting that slow tilt over. You'll notice from the atmosphere gauge at the top, we're actually into the upper atmosphere. This allows us to keep things fairly stable. It also means that we have to control our speed on the ascent. We don't want to let it get above 600 meters per second before we hit that outer atmosphere. We do get too high, then we get plasma buildup and all those delicate bits on the communications arrays and the solar arrays. They start getting damaged and breaking. But now we've got it up into, well, the extreme upper atmosphere. We're going to start actually trying to circularize our orbit, and you'll notice this part is actually sped up a little bit. Whenever there was no sound needed, I tried to speed up the all the kind of decision making and things like that, so it wouldn't get boring. And later we do actually speed up the building of the actual space station itself, so it'll get very quiet. But it's necessary because I had to take so long. The actual launch and getting it into orbit and things, they were dead easy. As you know, if you've done launches on Kerbal Space Program, you know that once you've done it a few times, you get a kind of a feel when it launch is going well, when it's not, and you just kind of go through the motions. It's very quick, very simple. But once you start doing something you're not used to, like me in the docking, you take things extremely slowly, and it took more time to do the small docking maneuvers than it did to do all the way from the launch to the orbit I wanted the station on. Before, you would have noticed I was doing changes to the inclination. I really wanted it on the same plane as the Series 1 station. No other reason other than I just really did. That's what I wanted. It was a little thing. I knew I could do it, so why not? Now, the main engine housing is not going with us, although I am kind of pleased with how I got rid of the that entire stage. I wanted to do something a little bit bigger. I wanted to deorbit it into Kerbin's atmosphere, and I forgot to put a probe core on. I forgot to put reaction wheels on it. In fact, I forgot to do a lot of things that I wanted to do. I just got kind of overloaded and decided, nope, I'm going to just get this done as soon as possible. And now we're fiddling with the actual final orbit. I wanted to get it to exactly 3 days, which is the orbital period it will take to go round Kerbin. So 3 days orbit, which is half... I won't say geostationary orbit. It's not, because it's not around Earth, but, you know, it was necessary. You'll also now notice me actually kind of reorientating everything and then making a save. The reason was because I'd actually got to a point where I was like, okay, now things are getting serious. This is me getting into that final stage, me prepping for what actually was coming. Made a small issue with the engines. I hadn't actually staged them properly. You'll notice there's no... Yeah, that's when they all came online. I suddenly realised I actually hadn't staged the engines, so they weren't ready to fire. And you'll notice just how much fuel we had left. I may have overcompensating a little bit there. Just a smidge. But there you go. We're all done. Everything's sorted. And we start the docking procedure. Now, obviously, the nerves were flowing. I was a little bit... nervous is a very mild way of putting it, but I was very nervous. And I had Red Moogle sitting next to me, and she was constantly calming me, trying to keep me calm. There are people out there who go, oh, this is easy, no problems at all. And now looking back, yes, it is absolutely easy. I can definitely do this kind of thing all over again. Setting my camera to locked vision so I can actually see exactly what I was doing. Remembering to turn on the RCS was a popular problem. And then we do the little puffs to get things moving just in the right direction. To anyone who's actually doing docking and using RCS and reaction wheels and you're trying to get everything balanced, being calm and not rushing, not panicking, is the best advice I can give you for anything like this. What I did on here was I set my target and I set where I wanted to control the actual, in this case, the science pod from. So I made sure that they were the two things that were going to dock together. Locked my target with my SAS and then just gently moved things into position, and then we get this. Now, things are going to speed up now because there is a lot of docking. An awful lot of docking. And I actually make a couple of mistakes when we go onto the struts for the solar panels and communications. If you can see when I make those mistakes, I'm sure you'll be understanding as to how I made those mistakes. One, I just got a bit confused about my orientation, and the other one, I just started overcompensating and panicking. But the pods in close very quickly went into position. Everything going according to plan so far. This one was a little bit different because I actually, you noticed when I was doing the build, I had the multi-port adapter at the top. I actually switched that to the bottom just to make it easier for me for actually docking, and it meant less maneuvering was required. But that was something I just thought about. I'll have to move that. Now, this stage of the video where you can actually see this first strut being moved in position, I actually went the wrong place there. Did all the right adjustments. I actually cut a bit out where I got so kind of confused about my finger movements and everything. Got myself a little bit worked up. I actually hit the Windows button, which is popular on my keyboard simply because it's right next to Control, which happens to deal with throttle. And I keep accidentally hitting that, but just reoriented myself, took my time, calmed down, moved things in, and slotted in. Had to make a small adjustment to the rotation to make sure that my solar arrays were going to be pointing in the right direction. But this whole point, from when we start putting the struts on, it's all running at 6 times speed. When we were doing the science modules and docking arm and things like that, that was accelerated by 4 times. This is accelerated by 6 times, and you can see how slow it is, even at 6 times speed. And I had to do that because I really didn't want to be talking for about 10 minutes. just constantly talking about how I did this and that and the other. It was just fun. Just move things along really slowly. I was able to take my hands off the keyboards, kind of shake myself out, get myself loose again. And yeah, it was all working well. And then I made a couple of mistakes and realized I couldn't do stuff like that. If you're keeping track, you'll notice that I'm actually connecting these communications and power struts to the extreme ends of the labs, 2 lab wings, because there was actually a 3rd lab on there. And that's what I'm using them for. I'm just having them extend out to the side. And then that leaves us with the docking arm and the fuel tank with their own docking ports. Fuel tank, I figured, can be used just, we could dock there or whatever we wanted to do. But I'm thinking maybe extending the space station from the docking arm. I'm not entirely sure. The standard docking ports are not very strong when you're trying to do maneuvers and things, but this is just going to be sitting in orbit. It's not going to be doing any strong maneuvering or anything. If I was going to do anything like turn it into a space station that goes to another planet, I'd probably try and use the senior docking ports. They are a little bit more picky on how they actually work. The magnets are nowhere near as strong. You have to be a lot more accurate, but they are good. And this is the last piece that had to be attached. and you get a nice view of it just clipping together. Move all the Kerbals into the right pods. We had 6 scientists on there. They're all in the labs now. And then we do the final bit of getting rid of the the engine housing, which someone had turned down the decoupler to 10% power, so he didn't damage the station, and had forgot all about that. No idea who that was. So we had to use the RCS to actually move the whole thing away. I did have a probe core in this engine housing to actually, because it has so much fuel in it, I could deburn it, deorbit it with a burn and everything, and I just completely forgot. I didn't have a reaction wheel or any RCS on it, so I ended up having to just kind of terminate it through the tracking station, which kind of sucks. It does kind of suck, because I was really hoping we could do that. But there you go, that's the completed station, and all we have to do is deploy the solar arrays and the radiator panels, which we will do right now. Look at that. Ain't it pretty? It's all done. I'm really proud of what I managed to do this. I did this all on my own, and with all one launch, I was impressed with myself. Not trying to pat myself on the back here or anything, but I really was impressed with myself. But there you go. Thank you very much for joining me today. If you want to see some more of the videos, then I've got the playlist in the top left. I've got the subscribe button in the top right, and something that YouTube thinks you might want to watch down in the bottom right hand corner. But there is the completed stations. Thank you very much for joining me. You lot take care of yourselves. I'll see you there. Bye bye.